Hello everyone, welcome to tonight's CPActive Town Hall, Stories That Activate. My name is Johanna Garvin, I'm your host for tonight. I'm very excited to be here with you all. I would like to pay my respects to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and would like to extend my respects to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people here tonight. Tonight's event has been closed captions, and as you can see, we have a live Auslan interpreters here who will be pinned to our screen throughout the event. If there is any other access needs you have, please send us a direct message so we can be sure that you are looked after. As mentioned, tonight's CPActive Town Hall is called Stories That Activate, which is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And through this event, we will look at how we can strengthen community through storytelling. CPActive is a community that raises the voices of people with lived experience of CP to activate change, and we hope that tonight's event will be something that directly does that. The CPActive Champion Steering Committee is dedicated to generating community, building each other up and advocating through campaigns. We are so glad to have you here tonight with us and be part of the CPActive community. As a filmmaker living with CP, sharing stories is something I'm incredibly passionate about. When I think about stories that activate in my own experience, I am immediately drawn to thinking about a short film that I made called Rocky and Me, where I reflected on my experiences living with CP. One of the reasons I wanted to make this film is to show that living with a disability is not a tragedy, just another way of being. This is why I believe storytelling is such a strong and powerful tool for advocating for things that you feel strongly about, in its ability to change perspectives. With that said, I'm incredibly thrilled to introduce you to our artists that are here to showcase their stories. They are comedian, actor and writer Angus Thompson, musician, songwriter and theatre maker Dean Nash, filmmaker and disability advocate Meret Hassanen, photographer and visual artist Jess Irwin, actor, writer and speaker and disability advocate Emily Dash. Let's deep dive into Stories That Activate and show you some of the work of these talented artists that we have here tonight. First up, I would like to introduce you all to Angus Thompson. Angus is a comedian, actor and screenwriter. He has co-created and starred in the hilarious ABC series, The Angus Project, and co-created and stars in the critically acclaimed SBS series Latecomers. Here is Angus starring in the official trailer of Latecomers. Check it out.
Hold still. Sure, let me just hit pause on my cerebral palsy, why don't I? That'd be great.
Oh my god, he's cute.
Too old for you and too hot for me.
Well, you start around your girlfriend. Hey.
I'm only here because my carer's trying to have sex with your carer.
Trying.
Sure, wear him down.
Frank is going to ask Sarah on a date.
Good on him. Keep an eye on Sarah for me, would ya? I don't want to have sex with you. Oh, wow.
I'm sorry about Frank. For what it's worth, sex is overrated.
Mate, you abandoned me for sex. I'm sorry. Was it worth it? Absolutely.
You knew he liked her, bro.
Liked her. They're not even talking to each other.
I think the real reason you called me unfuckable is because that's how you feel about yourself.
I'm not unfuckable. I'm not unfuckable.
No running at the pool.
Easy for you to say.
Oh no!
Sarah!
The Hoyer lift is...
It's good. It's solid.
Yeah, I'm pretty sorry.
Hi, Angus. Okay. That's such a great trailer. I love that trailer. Can you tell us a bit about how you activate change through your storytelling?
Well, with all my stories, I try to add truth to my own life and what's important to me that I want to tell the Australian public and what can be difficult going through life as a man with cerebral palsy.
And can you talk to us a bit about how Latecomers came about? Like, how did you come to collaborate with Emma Myers and Nina Oyama in the script writing process?
Emma and I both worked at the advocacy, and I saw the digital originals being advertised online, and I wanted stories from different minorities in Australia to tell a unique lived experience. So I contacted Emma, and together her and I came up with the concept of how difficult it can be trying to find romance and trying to date as someone with cerebral palsy. And I went to university with Nina, and she's one of my dearest friends. So I got her on board, and all three of us came up with a pitch to SBS, and we were lucky enough to be one of the few that was chosen to go to series.
And some of the things you learnt through the process of making Latecomers, because you also star in the show as Frank. How was that, taking on multiple responsibilities?
Yeah, I learned that. What I learned most was during the writing of Latecomers, because I'd written my own shows beforehand, but this was a much more in-depth process of being in the writer's room and collaborating with well-known screenwriters throughout Australia and learning from them how to write professional scripts, and it made me much better professional moving forward in my career. And then to Setting the star as the character that I created was the most incredible experience. And I met so many amazing creative people. It was the highlight of my career so far.
And do you think that Latecomers has had an impact on changing people's minds and perceptions about what it's like to live with a disability?
Yes, since since Latecomers came out, I've had so many people come up to me saying that they didn't ever contemplate that side of life when it came to disabled people, and it was such an eye-opening watch for them. And I've had people with disabilities say that they really appreciate that side of life being brought to the public's attention to show that we're not asexual beings, and we want love and we want romance. People should be open to the idea of dating someone with a physical disability.
Thanks so much, Angus, for that. That was really great to hear. And I'd highly recommend anyone watch Latecomers. It's such a great series on SBS. Thanks so much, Angus.
Thank you.
Next up, I'd really like to introduce you to Dean Nash. Dean is an actor, screenwriter, theatre maker, vocal coach, and emerging screenwriter. Dean creates art true to his experiences and is passionate about writing, portraying disabled characters whose disabilities are the least interesting thing about them. Dean is going to be performing a song from I Wish I Could Dance, a musical comedy cabaret he's in the early stages of writing. Take it away, Dean.
At the ripe old age of 34, I wear the mantle of disabled artist proudly, if not by choice. I feel it was thrust at me like a uniform of nonconformity, and it took a while to get used to it. I didn't choose it, but I've grown to like the way it fits. It's marked with things that people sometimes think are stains, but I think the scuffs and tears add character. It's not something that I've picked off a rack for myself, but I see the value in it. I see the need to see more of them, more people proudly wearing them, scuffs and stains and all. It'd be nice to take it off sometimes. Don't get me wrong, I like the way it feels to wear it and have my identity validated. I am disabled and I am an artist. My art is my innermost self made tangible, so disability is stitched into the seams, and I like my art. I like me. Still, sometimes it'd be nice to take it off, separate the two, just be an artist and not be subject to the preconceived notions of who I am, what box I tick, and what kind of stuff I should make. But I can't because nobody was wearing that uniform when I was growing up, so I genuinely thought it wasn't made to be worn outside the house. And for the first decade of my career, I tried desperately to cover it up, cover me up, and I'd walk into every audition like, I gotta hide it. Put my hand in my pocket, don't draw attention. Don't limp when you walk, pay attention, move with intention. 'Cause once they see disabled guy, doesn't matter the job you have, doesn't matter the money you make, doesn't matter how fancy your clothes are. and they can be pretty fancy. You're still just the disabled guy, and I know I'm not who I pretend to be, but I don't want to be who they tell me I am. So I'll be unbeatable, formidable, work harder, be smarter, be different on my terms. Unbeatable, formidable, work harder, be smarter, be different on my terms, and I'll see that I'm not who they tell me I am if I'm who I want to be. And I know what you're gonna say. The people who love you will love you anyway. But what do you want me to do? Take off the mask and put on the other mask, because I'm not who I pretend to be, but I don't want to be who they tell me I am. And I'll be unbeatable, formidable, work harder, be smarter, be different on my terms. Unbeatable, formidable, work harder, be smarter, be different on my terms. You'll see that I'm not who they tell me I am if I'm who I want to be. Thank you.
Wow, that was so amazing, Dean. Thank you so much. How do you hope your art will cultivate change and challenge perceptions about what it's like to live with a disability?
That's a really good question. I don't think about it a huge amount in the inception of the work that I'm making. You know, I just try and at least with projects like this one, I just try and tell sort of my story and hope and know that it'll resonate with a lot of other people as well. And I think, you know, storytelling is such a perfect medium for advocacy, because it kind of, you know, it puts people into, you know, the shoes of the storyteller a little bit as well, right? It's making an indescribable thing tangible a lot of the time. And so I think just by being there, just by having a space or creating a space, or, you know, taking space to tell these kind of stories, then that it kind of, it builds a certain level of connection. And that's I guess that's it.
Yeah, and can you tell us a bit about what motivated you to write Gotta Hide It and the musical theatre group you're a part of that you wrote this through?
Yeah, so over the 2021 lockdown, I was involved in a musical theatre development with a company called 11 O'Clock Theatre, and we were writing a concept musical about stories of love and connection from the perspectives of people whose stories aren't usually told, especially in that medium. And so every week we'd get different writing prompts and we'd sort of create these songs. And this one came out of how I used to feel in, you know, when I first entered the industry, the need to work harder than everybody else, to be given half the amount of opportunities, or, you know, the need to kind of try and hide or downplay my disability as much as possible so that I would be hired and I would be sort of let in the room. So that's what led to this song. And then also the cabaret that I'm writing at the moment, which is called I Wish I Could Dance, which based off of, again, at that time, desperately wanting to be a triple threat, like singer, actor, dancer, and knowing that probably wasn't going to happen, but my focus was on that and not the stuff that I could do.
And I know you've released an EP in 2021 called In the Autumn. Can you tell us a bit about that process and what that was like?
Yeah, so I started writing a lot of those songs in like 2016 and rediscovered them in an old Dropbox folder, and just kind of decided to finish them and release it. But there are a series of songs that kind of catalog a relationship at that time of my life, and so it's a bit of a song cycle. It's something I'm really proud of. I'm genuinely incredibly proud of that EP. So if anybody's a Spotify or Apple Music listener, just Dean Nash, and they should come up. I also released a single at the end of last year as
tell
well.
us about that.
That one, it was a pretty rushed process. It was a song I've been wanting to write for about 5 years, and it's a Christmas themed song, so it really had to be done in December. So naturally it all came into place mid-November, and then it was a mad dash to either get it out or wait a year.
So exciting, Dean. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, and everybody check out Dean's music on Spotify. I'd highly recommend it. Thanks so much, Dean. Now I'd like to welcome to the stage Meret Hassanen, who is a producer and a writer and an accidental disability advocate. In her art, Meret aims to highlight that disability is not one size fits all, and that people with a disability are equal members of society. Meret is going to share with us her 2021 documentary, Angel, which was part of the Reframe, the ABC's International Day of People with Disability special, which she also produced.
I'm Angel Dixon. I am an accidental activist and model. I'm a person with disability, and I'm passionate about universal design, accessibility and inclusion. The story of how I've ended up in research actually started about 13 years ago when I acquired my impairment, and I ended up in a hospital as a young person. And in retrospect, I realised that at that time I was experiencing disability. I was being disabled by the places and the people around me. Fast forward till now, I've had a career. In 2019, I became Queensland Young Australian of the Year.
I want to live in an Australia where everyone is accepted as unique individuals.
And last year I was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia and named on the Queen's Honours list. I've lived a life, and I'm still encountering very similar problems to what I was experiencing 13 years ago. It is an anger within me now because I know that we can do better. I know that I have every right to have access and to be able to be included. So in the research that I'm currently doing, which is called the Dignity Project, we talk a lot about experiences of dignity, but also we talk a lot about experiences of indignity. It is easier for people to talk about indignity because it happens so frequently. What our data reflects is that acknowledgement is an underpinning value for dignity for people with disability. It's really interesting that people were saying that even within themselves as an individual, they have fluctuations in their capabilities from day to day. So we had that one person that was talking about lip reading at the beginning of the day versus in the afternoon. People with disability have the need for flexibility even within the confines of a day at work, for instance. I've now ended up in a place where I get to not just tell my own story, I actually get to shut up and listen to other people's stories and collect some information to try and help us solve this phenomenon. So to achieve inclusion, we need to throw out the rule book and start again from a place of common sense, because true inclusion isn't about bringing people from the outside in, it's about starting again with everyone in mind.
Meret, I just love seeing that. Yeah. How are you?
I'm
Great to see.
fine.
Good. I was just wondering, how do you hope your art will activate minds and challenge perceptions about what it's like to live with a disability?
I try and show disability in the context of broader society. And so whether it's Angel or other projects I'm working on, try and show it in the bigger picture so that I guess audience members can understand that disability is a part of society and it's just as equal as any other part of society, and even though there might be challenges or obstacles, that doesn't make it any less.
Yeah. And can you tell us a bit about what impact interviewing Angel had on you through that whole process of making that documentary about Angel?
I think one of the things that Angel said to me, and I can't actually remember if it ended up in a documentary or not, but she said in the interview, "I'm not an expert on disability, I'm an expert on my disability," but that's kind of where it stops. And I think I've had experiences where I've been working on other projects about disability and something needs, I guess, a perspective, and so everyone just turns to me and they're like, "Oh, what do you think?" And I'm like, "Well, here's what I think, but this is just my perspective. It doesn't necessarily reflect every person with a disability." And so I think that was the biggest thing I took away from what she said.
Yeah. And I was also curious, can you tell everyone about the Reframe special that ABC had in 2022, which the documentary was a part of and you produced?
Yeah, so it was this hour-long compilation of films made by and starring people with disability all across Australia, and they were either short films or short excerpts of long films, both, I guess, fiction and drama. And after each film, there was like an interview with the filmmaker or an actor or someone with disability who worked on the film. And the aim was to really showcase disability in Australia.
And also, I was really curious, I know that you do quite a bit of producing with Back-to-Back Theatre.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that work?
Back-to-Back is an amazing theatre group in Geelong in Victoria, and their ensemble is entirely made up of people with intellectual disabilities or who are neurodiverse, and they tour around the globe, and they're very well renowned, and all of their work really centers on their experience and is co-written by the ensemble. And they've
I might be biased, but they've won some incredible achievements. Like they won the Venice Biennale recently, and they're just such an amazing group to work for. And I think the way they work should kind of be, I guess, more standard, and they're so inclusive and supportive of people from all kinds of backgrounds. And yeah.
And I also was really curious, because I know you've started doing some work with Emerald Shine as a producer. Are you able to tell us anything about that?
Yes, a bit. It's a documentary series that I guess kind of shines a light on people with musicians with disabilities who, because of their disabilities, haven't had a chance to break into the mainstream music industry. And we're in the middle of filming at the moment, which is
Exciting.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Well, thank you so much, Meret, for sharing the documentary about Angel. It was so interesting to see, and for sharing all your insights.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for that. At this point of the event, we're going to move to a short break. Please have a little stretch and enjoy the tunes from DJ Cooper, and we'll see you in 1 minute.
Hi, I'm a DJ with the Melbourne. I have been on holiday, what I'm hearing now, in the movie, in Melbourne, and now, that all are hell and that hell would that the and that and the boom around where the bathroom there was really open more harm and then have that more and more that the more the one with the harming to the and that woman now have that the time that the people. Then I'm really everyone doesn't know what to do in a little bit. Yeah.
Thanks so much, DJ Cooper. He's traveling at the moment, so unfortunately he couldn't be with us tonight, but we appreciate all your work and your tunes. We still have 3 more guests to share with you, and next up is Jess Irwin. Jess is a photographer and visual artist. She has excelled in achieving her goal of establishing and operating a commercial photography website and graphic design business. Jess is now going to share a clip about her art and the tools she uses and techniques.
Hey, I am Jessica Irwin, and I am an artist. Now, I know that is hard to believe when you are looking at me. However, this is one of my favorite artworks so far. It is not a straightforward process, and you will need a great sense of humor to combat the frustration, but anything is possible. Let's explore the techniques I use to complete my artworks. The cork provides a nice gap between the paper and the pen, so you can pick the pen up easier. Plus the cork prevents you from taking out your eyes, always good. See how difficult it is when there is no gap. Also the cork makes the pen roll in a circle, instead of rolling away. So you pick the pen up. My hand didn't quite hear that. So you pick the pen up. There we go, it heard me that time, such a switched on body part. I allow my arm to be weird for a second. Then push the pen into the mat, this positions it in my hand correctly. Finally put the pen to paper and draw. But what if I drop the pen? That is a bugger. Meet the magnet stick. Really want the damn pen. It is my favorite. Come on, don't make me swear in front of my great aunties. This is a cross between golf and fishing. So close, come on you bugger. We got a bite. Woohoo. Come on, admit that was impressive.
Hi Jess, so great to chat to you. I'm really curious to find out, how do you think your art activates minds and challenges perceptions of people with disabilities?
I am diagnosed with cerebral palsy, level GMFC4. I cannot physically sign my name or pick up a spoon to feed myself, but I can draw. Sometimes it does take a good 15 minutes to pick up the pen. People who are standing there watching are thinking, what the heck is she doing? It has been 10 minutes and she hasn't been successful in picking up the bloody pen. Is it really her artwork hanging on the wall behind her? Guys, come on, I can read your facial expressions. I am an expert on non-verbal cues. Yes, of course it's my artwork. Why else would I be sitting in front of it? Have you heard of the tale of the hare and the tortoise? Slow and steady wins the race. Okay, fine. I do agree life drawing is out of the question. The poor model would die of old age before I finish my sketch. Nevertheless, when I finally do get the pen positioned correctly in my hand and my hand to the paper, my body just relaxes and I can draw. I hope people see me drawing at the local art exhibitions or via my social media platforms and realize mind over matter is a powerful thing. Don't get me wrong, I'm not silly. I am aware that I am not going to get up and walk and talk anytime soon, but not everything is deemed to be impossible just because of your physical disability. I hope I can change people's minds from always honing in on the things that are impossible because they will miss the opportunity to achieve great things. Furthermore, people to feel discouraged by focusing on my chapter 10 when on their chapter 1. It has taken me 8 years to get where I am today with my physical capabilities. When I first started, I could only draw little squiggly lines that look like nothing. Nevertheless, when you learn and put them all together over time, you eventually get yourself a drawing of an owl. With enough patience and practice you can too achieve amazing things, as long as your heart is in it for the long run. I really enjoy displaying my latest artworks at my local markets and art exhibitions. I especially love when strangers come up and take an interest in my artwork. I remember this gentleman came up to me at one of my exhibitions. All he said was, "I need one of your original artworks. I am amazed by your hand control." This meant a great deal to me because I was competing against able-bodied artists. I feel like I do this with everything I do. I don't limit my benchmarks just because I have cerebral palsy. There is always room to improve and push yourself further, regardless of your disability. And you can see the public slowly becoming more comfortable with inclusion. At some exhibitions, you can see their mind ticking over, working out who the artist is. I see them looking at my hands and the paper in front of me. Being the person I am, I allow them to wonder for a few more seconds. Most of the time, they think it is my support worker as the artist. No, it is me, which I find hilarious because most of my support workers don't even enjoy art. I have seen them attempt stick figures, not pretty at all. My support worker, why did you do that? That I am the artist and proceed to show them a video of me actually drawing. After they have seen it with their own eyes, they can believe what I am capable of. My hopes are that the public will take away the lessons from our interactions. So if they are holding job interviews, for example, they will not dismiss someone solely because they are nonverbal and in an electric wheelchair. We are capable just like everyone else.
Couldn't agree more, Jess. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us, and I'd highly recommend everybody check out Jess's work. It's amazing. Thanks so much, Jess. Next up, we have, I would like to introduce you to Emily Dash. Emily is an accomplished filmmaker and theatre maker, as well as a dedicated industry advocate for arts practitioners and audiences with disability or who are deaf. Emily has written and produced, directed or performed in many screen and stage productions in Sydney and has worked with the ABC and the Sydney Opera House. Emily has participated in several accessible arts professional development programs and is a member of the Accessible Arts Advisory Board. Here's a clip of some of Emily's work.
I'm not a work of art. My body's not a book, and still you read it. My limbs are not my story. They're just the one you want to hear. Your glazed eyes scan my pages, tear me into pieces, writing and rewriting until the ink stains my skin. The ending's what you expected, and you know exactly what to say when someone asks you about it. Your shaking hands cover me in savage words and paint them in rainbows on my lips. All because you don't want to put a foot wrong. Relax. my feet are always wrong. And God forbid you'd ever be surprised. I sit entangled, impaired, disabled, caught in the web you weave, shaded with ignorance and misconceptions you don't want to understand. If you looked a different way, you would see your first mistake. Your discomfort is not my shame. You can't reduce me to a shadow of myself, like I have nothing to offer you. Even though you let yourself believe we are so different, the blood that runs in my veins is worth no more or less than yours. Yet you deny me my essential humanness. Of course, it's not always that simple, is it? I live on a tipping point, existing in the dreaded space between, where all your words desert you, when labels dissolve like sugar on your tongue. I am the bitter aftertaste. You try to force me beneath the surface. Swallow whole, take a breath, promise access, and think the deal is done. No, I need more. And so I speak over and over and over again, rising from the wreckage of wrongness, the exhaustion of enough. And I say this: don't tell me it's too hard. Don't say it can't be done. Just take what I can give and use it well. I shouldn't have to ask you once, so I refuse to ask you twice. Change your mind. I am not a work of art.
That's such a powerful piece of work, Emily. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thanks, Joe, so much.
Can you tell us a bit about how you hope your art will activate minds and challenge perceptions of what it's like to live with a disability?
Yes, I can. I think that the first thing I'll say is that when people see that piece, which is one of the first pieces that I wrote and performed as an artist about 10 years ago, they always think that I'm a little bit scary and don't want to approach me. But I try to approach challenging perceptions and things like that through my art in a number of ways. Compare that piece, which is quite a strong sort of spoken word advocacy piece, with a piece that I did later, which is a film called Groundhog Night. And that is a drama comedy that looks at, the funny and poignant moments of living with a disability in a family unit. And so I think with each different project that I do, I try to challenge perceptions in different ways and really show the light and the dark, because I think that when people are moved or entertained, they are far, far more likely to be receptive to something that might otherwise be confronting. So yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Well, it definitely makes people think. I think your work just really challenges the way people think and makes us want to do better. And I was really curious to know, you wear many different creative hats, as an award-winning actor and writer and disability advocate. Can you tell us a bit about what motivated you to become a storyteller and how your artistic practice has changed over time?
Yes, yeah. In terms of what motivated me to become a storyteller, I've been telling stories for as long as I can remember, and storytelling was always a big part of my childhood and things like that growing up. So I've been writing since I was around 12 years old. And I studied at university. I did a Bachelor of Arts in sociology and gender studies, which sort of opened up my worldview in a lot of ways. And when I was finished with that, I decided to take a year off and pursue my artistic practice, which I hadn't done in quite a number of years. And so I started taking opportunities, and from there, spoiler alert, I never went back. And yeah, so I've been doing this, my artistic practice, for around about 10 years now, and I work in quite a lot of forms, whether that be performance poetry, film, or theater. And in terms of how my practice then has changed over time, I think you learn and grow from all of the other artists who are coming up with you and have done things before you and are coming up and doing things after you. And I think it's about being open to new ideas, being open to learning and evolving. I mean, I can say that I've learned a great deal from yourself, Joe, but also I think I've followed every single person on this panel in varying ways for all of my career. So it's really great to connect with community and draw from community and find your real place and what you can offer and how you can also lift each other up.
Couldn't agree more, Emily. Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for sharing I'm Not a Work of Art with us and all your insights. It's been so great to chat to you.
Thanks, Joe.
Now, sadly, we have an apology from Hannah Debony, and she's let us know that she's been unwell and is unable to be here with us tonight. We were excited to share some of Hannah's work, in particular, having her share a bit of her debut book. So as she can't be here, we will share a link that you can have a look at and of some of her work. Now, there were so many great insights from all our artists, and I hope you've all enjoyed the showcase of the work of our community members. Now we're going to switch gears and move into a panel discussion with each of our guest artists. I'll give a couple of moments to let my colleagues pin our guests. All right, I think we've got everybody. Great. So I'm so excited to chat to you guys about some more about storytelling. And I just wanted to start with Jess. Can you tell us a bit about how you think your art impacted the community?
In 2022, I became an auntie for the first time to a cheeky little girl named Gracie. She is only 1.5 years old now, but she wants to know how everything works. To the point, whenever she finds a new object, she waddles up to us and demands to know what does do and how it works. The little miss has worked out. If she asks to have a cuddle with Auntie Jess, she will get put on my lap, and from there, she can reach my wheelchair controller. I would like it to be noted on the record, she has only outsmarted me once so far. However, she can't even talk yet, and she is already gesturing. Why is Auntie Jess being fed? Or why does Auntie Jess using a walker? Gracie puts her hands on her hips and tilts her head. It is hilarious. How do you begin to explain cerebral palsy to someone that little with so much attitude? Yep, I'm now illustrating children's books, explaining why Auntie Jess is a little different. There will be 3 books, and hopefully I can get them published to reach a wider audience too. I would like to explain to Gracie what cerebral palsy is, in my own words, using my own examples. To have that bond with her.
And Dean, throwing to you, what do you think makes an authentic story?
Look, I think authenticity is such a huge it's such a huge concept. I feel like it's hard to define it one single way, but for me it's sort of when every character that you're intending to portray is portrayed in a way that that sort of honors the entirety of that person, whether it be disability, or whether it be the queer community, or whether it be like people of color. As long as the story that you're telling is told in a way and by people of that community, I think that is authenticity.
And Jess, how about you? Okay. And how about you, Emily? What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting because what makes an authentic story changes within and around the community all the time. But I would echo what Dean says in terms of, from my own practice, it's about delving deep into my own experiences. But then if you want to make a story, an authentic story with someone from a, quote unquote marginalized community, first I would say, why are you telling that story, and making sure that your reasons are clear and sort of purposeful and meaningful. And then how are you telling that story in terms of really meaningful, authentic collaboration with the community that you are telling a story about. Lots of people have different views on who can tell what stories, and when you're an actor, it becomes even more interesting in terms of who can play roles and things like this. But I think what we can all agree on is that we need real collaboration with authentic community members of lived experience, regardless of whether or not you're from that community or whether you're an ally.
And to you, Meret, do you have anything to add about what you think the impact your stories have on the community?
I think Emily summed it up really well. I just think it's about being true to the particular story you're telling, and you know, I think it's great if you want to tell a really personal story, but I always say to people, I've got so many stories to tell beyond my direct lived experience. So I think in that case, it's just about research and collaborating with people who can give you the insight you don't have. But yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think it's really key to have really strong collaborators. And I was wondering, Angus, what do you think makes a great collaborator? Because you've been really clever in finding collaborators that really have strong skills like you, and you have a really strong working relationship. Can you tell us a bit about that?
In the creative industry, I think it's important to make strong friendships with other creative people and make sure you've got really professional people with a lot of experience around you, so that when you're unsure of how to tackle a situation that you haven't been in before, you've got others around you that have you back and help you through difficult situations to get to your ultimate goal.
What do you think, Dean, makes a good collaborator? Like Angus said, is it more about finding the chemistry between you and different people?
Yeah, I agree with the sentiment of that completely, 100%. I think the cool thing about this industry is that it is as much a community as it is an industry sometimes, and I think just by making work, you find the people that you enjoy making work with, and you try and hold on to those relationships and keep those relationships strong. As much as I love branching out and finding new collaborators, there are, there's a big handful of people that I will work with again and again and again and again and again, because that chemistry is there, that relationship is there, and most importantly, I think that trust is there. And I think for me, that's what makes a good collaborator is, and you usually find them not by accident, but not intentionally either. It's just you're pulled into their orbit or they're pulled into yours.
And Emily and Dean, I'm really curious, you guys tell us stories through a variety of different mediums, including music and literature and screen. Which medium and which piece of work, if you'd like to share, do you feel has the most impact when it comes to disability advocacy? And also to Meret and Angus, is there any work that you particularly goes, this is really strong in my advocacy? I know, Angus, you've got the latecomers. Was there any other work that really resonated with you in that space?
Did you want to field it first, Emily?
Yes. Sorry, I wasn't sure who.
Me either.
So it's kind of interesting because I think every medium gives you different things and gives the audience different things and allows you to communicate different things. In terms of picking the projects that have the most impact in terms of disability advocacy, I could say that things like I'm Not a Work of Art and Groundhog Night being two different tones of work, if you like, are quite strong. But I think that every piece of work I've ever made, no matter what medium it is, has a place in disability advocacy and works hopefully to shape those perceptions. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge, the first play I wrote, which is called Free Fall, which starred myself and Dean Nash. So even that being a theatre work, I feel like didn't that explicitly look at disability advocacy, but it did show disabled people in situations that they're not normally depicted in. Yeah.
And how about for you, Dean?
I feel like I should have gone first because Emily always has a way of summing things up so perfectly. There's really not much else to say. Look, I think I love every medium that I create in, and it's a gig economy, right? So the more versatile you are, the better. But music was my stepping off point, I think. But in terms of advocacy, I think as disabled creatives, whether we like it or not, the stuff that we make is politicized, and who we are is politicized. I always refer to myself, it's in my Instagram bio too, I'm an incidental advocate, just simply by being a disabled person who makes stuff or exists publicly. I am an advocate, whether I want to be or not. And so I was like, why not lean in all the way? But the stuff that I make never has advocacy at the center of it. It usually is just disabled people existing in the world. And because there's so few of that across any of the mediums that I create in, it's naturally a source of advocacy just by its existence.
That's so interesting. And Angus, I was really curious to hear your thoughts on what role comedy has to play in helping you or helping anyone advocate on some sort of strong issue, because I think it's a really clever way. Like, you look at how Latecomers really presents the audience with some really complex issues, but in a really clever way through comedy. Can you tell us a bit about that and what you think comedy has to play in a person's advocacy?
Well, growing up with cerebral palsy, I found the general public was looked at me and thought, poor guy who's got a disability, he can't do what other people are capable of doing. His life must be really frustrating and hard, but really I've got a great fulfilling life, and sure things are hard sometimes, but it's easier to laugh at them than frustrated by it. So in all my work, I give the audience a sense of comical value behind every situation I have, to the point where the audience feels a bit uncomfortable laughing at my misfortunes. And I think it's really important to say to everyone not to think of the disabled community as poor things. We're just quite different capabilities, and when things perhaps we can just shake it off by laughing at it and moving on to the next thing.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that leads me on to my next question. What do you all feel like, what would you like to see in terms of representation of people with disabilities in 5 to 10 years' time? Because we've seen so much progress in the way people are represented, like, for example, having that Netflix special called Special about that guy with CP, latecomers. We've seen artists going to the Archibald, being selected for that. So I'm just curious what you guys would like to see. Meret, what do you think you'd like to see in 5 to 10 years' time? If you had a crystal ball.
One big question. I think I'd like to see, talking specifically in a kind of film and TV sense, I would like to see actors cast in roles that aren't specifically written for people with disability just because they're great actors, and I would like to see writers with disability really pushing the envelope on the story that's being told and kind of making people uncomfortable, and in doing so making them question, I guess, their views on the world. And there was one other thing which I forgot, but I just think, you know, I guess making disability more mainstream by not narrowing or not confining artists to artists with disability to telling stories specifically about disability, I think would be their ultimate goal.
How about you, Dean? What would you like to see?
Yeah, I mean, to echo that point, as an actor, I would absolutely love to see more disabled actors be cast in roles where the disability wasn't the central point of their existence. And I know we're kind of getting there at the moment, because I mean, you know, we've got within the Australian industry alone a handful of incredible sort of film writers and makers that are starting to do that. But it would be really nice to see that widespread, and not necessarily on something that was pitched in a purely disability-led kind of field, you know. That would be phenomenal. I think what I'd settle for, though, like, you know, pie in the sky stuff aside, would be a lot of the barriers within that industry, within film, within music, within theatre, to be, if not completely dismantled, at least, you know, alleviated somewhat, so that the door was just a little bit more open. And then I feel like this problem starts to kind of correct itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And Emily, what would you like to see?
Yeah, I want to echo everything that everyone else has said. In terms of more roles for disabled actors, in terms of more of a commitment to writing disabled stories from a disabled perspective, but also stories, as we say, where disability is not the main feature. I also would like to add that I want to see all kinds of disability represented, because at the moment you tend to see representations of disability that the public finds sort of palatable and I think latecomers in particular did a really good job of pushing that envelope, and I want to see more of that happening, and taking more risks on people that we don't see. And I want to make sure that the industry positions itself right from the get-go as accessible to people with disability, because I know growing up and leaving high school, I certainly didn't think that being an actor as a person who was disabled would ever be a valid career path, or being a writer for that matter. So I want people to know straight away that the arts industry is open to them, because I'm excited about the range of different voices that will come up alongside the work that's already been done.
I think we may have lost Joe.
Maybe, yes.
As soon as we walk in the door. To see us not have to prove ourselves as soon as we walk in the door.
Like, for example, the other day I was part of an employment opportunity, a mainstream sort of employment opportunity. It was only a week-long thing that I was able to do, but I felt that I had to spend a large part of that week educating, the people in the program and running the program about what I was capable of, so that, for example, my support worker who accompanied me in the session wasn't given credit or like undue acknowledgement for the work that I was doing. So that, yeah, I would like, as Jess said,
sorry, everybody, back on.
not have
Yeah,
to prove myself all the time. Joe, you're back.
I'm back. I'm so sorry, everybody. I had some technical issues. My battery went back, but we're all good. All good. All good. Yeah. So, and finally, Angus, what would you like to see?
I'd like to see young people with young writers with a disability to not be afraid to write about topics that they might be afraid that society would not want to talk about or not want to think about a disabled person doing. I want everyone to have the confidence to write their own experiences and not be afraid of being shunned or judged by society, because our stories are important, and if we don't tell the wider community our stories, they're not gonna develop to know what the disabled community want from their lives and what they're capable of doing. And I'd also like to see more thought behind accessibility on set in TV and film, because even on latecomers, Hannah Garvin and I noticed that some of the set there were steps up to the sets that we had to act on, and those steps into houses, and there were portable toilets that I had trouble accessing. So I think if there's more thought behind the scenes of sets to make sure everything's accessible for disabled actors before they're on set, because we're already trying to remember our lines and get into character, and we don't want the added steps of trying to access something that isn't accessible.
I couldn't agree more, Angus. And unfortunately, that's just a great way to wrap up our panel. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time. So I'd like to say thank you so much to everybody for joining us this evening. And I'd like to say a special thank you to all our artists, and we will be sharing all their work. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Angus, Dean and Emily, Meret and Jess for coming along. Thank you so much for joining us all tonight. And I'd like to say a huge thank you to the CPActive Steering Committee and the Operations Team Manager, Tegan Butchers, Sky Bryan and Kat Kassar for putting this fabulous event together. And a big thank you to our Auslan interpreters. And before you go, make sure you get an early bird registration for our next event in September. The next CPActive Town Hall will be one all about activating our allies and building capacity for disability inclusion. This event aims to share the experiences of individuals with CP and guide towards a better inclusive society for our allies and people with disabilities. The registration link is in your chat now. Just one final thing to help us shape and support CPActive ally community moving forward. We ask for your help on a quick couple of survey questions. There is a link in the chat, which I will ask you to click on now, which will take you to a quick CPActive survey. If you could spend just a few minutes on giving your feedback, that would be great. And we look forward to seeing you there at our next event. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you soon.